All right, guys. I was planning on going through it myself at this point, if that's okay, or do you guys want more time to work on it before I do that? All right, I'll go for it. Okay, so here's my page that I'm working on. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure I can, actually, the very first thing I'm going to do is just make sure I can write something. All right, I see hello, so that looks pretty good. I'd just like to see some more HTML on here. Okay, cool. So the next thing I'm going to do is just make sure I can save a variable and then echo that out. And that still works. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to try putting in a for loop. Actually, no, I'm not even going to get to that yet. I'm going to just do the fizzbuzz part just for this one number. Okay, so let's see. If number modulus 3 equals 0, echo fizz. Else, if number modulus 5 equals 0, echo buzz. Can anyone remind me what modulus does? Yep, yeah, it's the remainder. It's not just if it's divisible by, it's the remainder. So if I do 17 modulus 5, the answer will be 2. Because 5 goes into 17 3 times, and then 2 is left over. The modulus is what's left over, aka the remainder. 3 equals 0, and number divisible by 5 equals 0. Echo fizz buzz, else echo number, and let's see how that goes. All right, so that's echoing the number for 32, which seems correct. If I do 30, I think it should put out fizz buzz, but it just puts out fizz because... Yeah, because if the number is 30, then it evaluates this first line. Is 30 divisible by 3? Yes, it is. So it just does this, and then it stops. So this is like the trick of fizzbuzz, getting this thing in order. Okay, so I'll put this guy first. And then, now that should be pretty good. All right, cool. So that's like my first part. Now I want this to happen for each number up to that specific number. So the number I want to end up with is 100. So I'm going to just make sure I can loop through the numbers up to 100. X equals 0. I'll do it this way. Number equals 0. Number less than or equal to 100. Number plus plus. Oops. And we'll just make sure I can echo the number. All right, and I say 0, 1, 2, blah, 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 blah. So that looks right, except I would rather it started at 1. Okay, there we go. So that looks correct. Now I'm just going to take all this code I wrote before and put it in there. And let's see what this does. All right, there we go. So that's looking pretty good. But now it's obviously all on one line, which is kind of janky. And it's all on one line here, which is also kind of janky. So what I could do is I could just put like \n after each of these. But, well, yeah, you know what? I'll start off with that. Okay, cool. So now I am merrily fizz-buzzing away. But I don't really like the fact that I had to write this \n 4 times. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say output equals fizzbuzz, output equals fizz, output equals buzz, and then output equals number, and then I can just say echo output \n, and I only need to do that \n once. So I'm taking whatever the result of each loop is and saving that to a variable, and then I'm just putting that \n at the end of that loop. All right, cool. So there's that. This takes me up through the first step, I think. Any questions so far? Cool. All right, so the next step is to make the output go into a file. So for this one, I'm just going to start off playing around with this file put contents thing. The way this works is if you put the name of a file, so I'll do wombat.txt. So it's a function where it takes 2, optionally 3 arguments. The first one is the file you want to put stuff into. The second thing is what you want to put into that file. So if I put I like wombats here, then when I run this, it should create a file called wombat.txt with I like wombats inside it. So if I run this, that looks the same. But if I look over here, I can now see I have wombat.txt right there. And I can open this guy up over here. And I can change this to I really like wombats. And if I rerun it, oops, here we go. I can see it's now I really like wombats, just like that. So this is how file put contents works. My goal is to get everything that shows up on this page, so the 1, 2, fizz, blah, blah, blah. My goal is to get that into another file. So there are a couple different ways of doing it. One way would be something like this. I'm going to say file contents equals an empty string. And then after each loop, I'm going to add the output of that loop onto that empty string. So after each loop, it's going to add fizz, buzz, or whatever onto this file contents. If I echo this at the end, you should see the same thing. Oops, I forgot my \n. All right, so far it looks the same, but now instead of just echoing this, I can do file put contents output.txt. And now when I run this, I don't see anything there anymore because I'm not echoing it anymore. But I can see I have an output.txt file right here that has all of my fizz buzzing inside it. So there we go. There I am putting it into a separate file. So that's one way of doing it. Another way would be to do something like, to not have this file contents thing, but instead to say inside each loop, so every time it loops through the numbers, for each number, it's going to put output n. But if I leave it like this, it's just going to overwrite that file. Whoops. File put contents. There we go. If I leave it like this, and then I look at output.txt, all I see is buzz. That's because I just told it every single time it goes through this loop to replace the entire contents of that output.txt file, which isn't super helpful. What I really want to do is I want to append it to that output.txt file. So I can put that optional third argument in here, which is file append. And then when I run this, instead of overwriting the file, it's just going to add stuff on to the end of it, just like this. So that also works. The only downside, whoops, stop. Go away, that's fine. The only downside is that I run this however many times, it's going to keep appending it to that file. So this is going to start getting really, really long. So I would say the first way is better, where instead of doing it like this, I just stuck it onto that file contents variable, and then I can look in here, and it just gives me exactly what I wanted. And finally, I can echo it out as well. So I could also echo file contents and do both. There we go. So I get it there, and I also get it here. So that's the second level of this, making the output go into a file. Any questions about that? Max?
What was the second thing you passed as a file name?
The first thing is the file name. The second thing is what I want to go into that file. So it should always be a string. In this case, it's a variable that contains a string.
I was referring to when you named the document wombat.txt.
I think I did something like, I like wombats. And then that gave me, I like, oh, sorry, it's in wombat.txt. There it is. Other questions? All right, so the last step here is instead of just hard coding in 100 to get a number and to get a number in capital letters. So that means use the get parameters that come from the URL. If your URL is foo.php, my name equals John, it creates a get parameter called my name with the value of John. So let me show you that going on in here. I'm going to print this $get thing. And then I should just see an empty array here, but if I do my name equals John, now it has my name John inside it. And I can put however many things on here I want. I can do age equals 42. There we go, and I could just keep adding things on. If you go to Google and you search for something, you're going to see that when you search, what gets added onto your URL is a little query string like this. So if I search for cat photos, what's going to get added onto it is this q equals cat photos thing. And so that's a way of passing in a parameter to Google. This isn't just a PHP thing. You can do this with Express, Rails, everything else. It's a standard HTTP thing. We just haven't done it very much. But the advantage of this, well, any thoughts as to why it's nice being able to have these URLs in your parameter like that? I mean, these parameters in your URL like that? It's because you can bookmark it, actually, and you can just see it right there. So if I go to Google and I really want to search for cat photos all the time, I can just bookmark that URL for searching for cat photos, and I can just go back to it. And I don't need to type in cat photos again. You can't bookmark a post request, but you can bookmark a get request, which is exactly what this is. So with this in mind, this gives me a way of getting a number from up here. So instead of doing things the way I did down there, I can just say it's less than or equal to get number. And now this should do it 32 times. I can see it stops at 32. So all I had to do was just change this one little piece of code right here. And now if I change my URL to 100, it'll do it 100 times. If I do it 1,000, it'll do it 1,000 times. Just like that. So there we go. Any questions about that? Now one problem is that if I don't have a number in here, it's going to give this notice to me saying undefined index number. So it gives this error to you if well, in this case, there isn't a number inside that get array because I didn't put number, excuse me, I didn't put number up here. So what I could do is I could check to see if that get number is set. And they do that with is set. Get number. So if it's set, do all this stuff. Otherwise, if it's not, then do something like echo, please enter a number. Cool. So now if there's no number in the URL, it's going to say please enter a number. And if there is, it works. I went to hello.php number equals 100. And if I wanted to, I could get really fancy and be like, I don't know, like if is set. I can personalize my fizz buzzing experience and say like, hey there, get name. I'm not sure how string interpolation works with things like this, so I'm just going to do it like that. And then I could put like name equals Juan up here, and it says, hey there, Juan. That looks terrible, but whatever. Maybe I'll move this up here so it's in a slightly different place. H2. There we go. Cool. So now I have a sweet personalized fizz buzzing app that's extremely interactive and fun. Any other questions? All right, so for the rest of the class, what I'd like you guys to work on is this phone book, called a phone book because it's PHP. Got it? Nah. And this is actually deployed to Heroku, so you can look at it if you want to. And one nice thing about deploying PHP apps to Heroku is that you don't need a proc file, you don't need to do rate db seed, you just do Heroku create, git push Heroku master, and that's it. There's no other setup that you need to do or anything. It's super easy. So inside this phone book array, repository, the way I wrote this out is so it does it by commit. What I did commit by commit, and what I would expect you to do commit by commit. And there are also a bunch of hints down here at the end. So I don't give you all the answers, but I write out all of the different functions that I used when making this script. So some of them look pretty familiar, like file put contents. You could probably infer what file get contents does, and file exists should be pretty straightforward as well. So I'd just like you guys to take a stab at this and see if you get far on it, see if you can deploy it. That's pretty much the rest of class. So if you have any questions or anything, then just holler and come bring me over. Maybe I'll stop everyone in 20 minutes or something and just see how things are going. But that's all I got. Okay, poof, go work.